Pleasant greetings in Yeshua's name. Good evening. This evening, we would like to take a look at the book of Daniel. But as I contemplate this book and also the reading of the scriptures, we ought to consider the scriptures as we read them, that they are unto us a biography in the sense that we see ourselves in the characters of the individuals that are in here in the Word of Yah. We see the mistakes they make, even as we make the same mistakes. And sometimes we see the good deeds that they have done, and we can relate to that. We're not just reading abstract people, it's a biography for us. And so we are in here. And so one might well conclude that this is a kind of eclectic compound of narratives taken from different prophets and different judges and kings and disciples. Even as our experiences over time, they have been like a compound of truth and errors, in the sense that we have sat under the tutelage of different teachers over time. And they have taught us. And often we have assumed that they have taught us the best way, only to realize we have to relearn that which they have taught us. And so it is a kind of eclectic feeling and experience that we have had. So we want to do even as Paul said to Timothy, that he ought to study the word to show himself approved unto whom? Unto Yah, because a workman need not be ashamed. And so tonight we want to look at the book of Daniel, and we look at Daniel chapter 7. Come with me there. Daniel chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand up upon the feet as a man, and the man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl. The beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it. And this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So let's pause and see if we can unpack this in our Bible study this evening. The first thing we notice in the chapter is that the book here is not chronological. Because if we were to turn to chapter 5, we will see that that's the year that Belshazzar died. Chapter 7 tells you it was the first year of Belshazzar's reign. And so he reigned 2 years, and in the third year he died when he saw that bloodless hand writing on the wall. And perhaps in our study tonight, it will bring home to us that even as we look in our times, we see, perhaps not physically, but the signs tell us that there is a writing on the wall of time. As we looked throughout the world, it's trouble spots everywhere. We go to California, there's wildfires everywhere, and elsewhere in the country, there is tension. And so the end is still writing on the wall. But we want to unpack this. Daniel said it was the first year of Belshazzar reigning as king. And Daniel says, I saw in the vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. Of course, he's talking about the Mediterranean here. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. He's letting us know they came up out of people, because Revelation 17 and verse 15 tells us that the water that you saw, they are people. So in prophecy, as we're studying here, water or sea represents people. In verse 4, he says, the first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand upon its feet as a man. And a man's heart was given to it. Now, most of the scholars that I know, theologians, when they read this passage of Scripture, instinctively they align it with Daniel chapter 2. And they tell you that chapter 7 of Daniel, it's a mere repeat of what the prophet wrote in chapter 2. But I'm not sure that I can place my anchor in the depth, the deep waters of their ocean. So we want to look at this and see if there is anything to relearn. And the reason I say that is this. that when you read chapter 2, Daniel gives us an image of gold head, silver breast, bronze thigh, and iron feet, and toes with mixed with miry clay. And he went away and he prayed and he came back. He got the answer, so he knew. He knew what those images represent, those metal represent. He knew. In chapter 7, he doesn't know yet. He doesn't know at all. And so he's letting you know that I saw in the vision at night, and behold, the four winds of heaven. I'm doing this for emphasis. Strove upon the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. The first was like a lion. So these things here are in the future, because Belshazzar here is already reigning in Babylon. So Babylon is established. It's not something that is coming in the future. And before Belshazzar, there was Nebuchadnezzar. So he's letting you know these beasts, as he's told in the interpretation of them, these are four kingdoms that shall arise. So if these are four kingdoms that are going to come up in the future, it couldn't include Babylon at the time that was already established. Daniel says in his interpretation, these are four kingdoms that shall. That's an auxiliary verb. And so we know it is in the future. We know that. And not only that, it is an action that is mandatory, not permissive. Shall. And so he's letting you know these four kingdoms shall arise. Not Babylon. Babylon has already been established, and the king Belshazzar is already reigning. These are future developments. We need to understand that. So I disagree with the scholars and the theologians who have, over time, given us that interpretation that chapter 7 and chapter 2 are the same. So let's look at it. Verse 4. The first was like a lion, and the eagle's wings I beheld till the wings were thereof plucked. I think Daniel wants us to know that these kingdoms that shall arise, these are kingdoms that are going to be current in the times that we live. They're going to be current. So we have to look at countries that carry these symbols in the times in which we live. And the one that comes immediately to mind of the lion is Great Britain. Great Britain has the emblem of a 3 lions. And moreover, it says it had eagle wings. And we know America is the country with the emblem of an eagle. And obviously, America history tells us, came out of Great Britain, or at least it got its independence from Great Britain in 1776, 4th of July. So that's this year, 4th of July, will be 249 years. And interestingly, we're made to understand that an empire, and the average empire, lasts 250 years. So perhaps some of the things that we're seeing in America that looks strange to us, if they look strange, they're only strange for people who are not understanding the prophecy. So we see that America gained its independence, and the word says it stood up after the eagle left the lion. After America, if we ascribe and if we arrogate this symbol to America, when America left Britain, it stood up like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Let's call him that man, Uncle Sam. So Uncle Sam stood up. And let's ascribe the lion to Britain and the eagle to America. And let's not just stop there, because this is the fourth beast that bothered Daniel. It bothered him because it was an interesting beast. Let's read verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. A strong beast. It was a strong beast. And Daniel said in verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and the mouth speaking great things. So Daniel said this fourth beast, this eagle beast, troubled him. Troubled him. So I want you to come with me now to Revelation chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12. And let's read from verse 7. It says, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. And he was cast into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And it says that this devil started to plague the woman here being the assembly or the church. And the woman fled into the wilderness. And the woman was there for quite a while, 1260 years. Verse 14 says, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle. So here we are again, having to contend with this eagle. the church, while it was in persecution, being chased by the devil, was helped by the eagle. Now, to contextualize that, you have to go to Revelation 2 and Revelation 3. Why? Because we know that round about the time of Pergamos, which is a time when Constantine joined the assembly, the church, and Yeshua himself said that that time, that's where Satan's seat dwell, in Pergamum, which is in Turkey. And after that, we have Thyatira, which is the medieval church, as we have come to understand that, the time when Catholicism was really in its zenith time and persecuting people. At that time, the teachers in both eras, Pergamum and Thyatira, were Balaam and Jezebel, respectively. So for the mere fact that you hear the name Balaam and Jezebel, you know false teaching was taking place in these assemblies at that time. In fact, Yeshua says, in relation to Thyatira, I like your charity, but I don't like the fact that Jezebel is your teacher. So that's the medieval church. That's the medieval church. And so that church was persecuting the people. And then we have Sardis, who decided to reform what Thyatira was doing. And so you had a man like Zwingli. You have another one by Luther, Martin Luther, Calvin, and such men, Erasmus, all these men in that era of time. And so this church, when it came out of the persecution, it fled, because the word says that the church was given wings of a great eagle. It qualifies the eagle. Now, you could even say the great bald eagle. Why? Because when the church fled from Europe, the pilgrims and the Lollards and people from Holland and elsewhere, Switzerland, they came to America. They came to America. And so you see when the passage says the woman was helped by the eagle, the woman was helped by America. That's what he's saying. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water, that's people, as a flood, chasing the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away in the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So if you're paying attention, two things you need to notice here is that the eagle and the earth are the same thing. The eagle and the earth are the same thing. The eagle, the woman was given, the church, the assembly was given eagle's wings and came to the earth. Not the world, to the earth, a particular location, the earth. That's America. That's where they came. History tells us that. So that makes it significant now that we turn to Revelation chapter 13. And Revelation chapter 13 and verse 11 says, "And I beheld another beast coming out of the earth." A beast came out of the earth. It is the same beast, so it is believed. That is in Revelation 12, because that's where the woman, the church, came when the church was fleeing persecution. And it says, "The beast had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." We know horns in prophecy represents power. And we know the power of this country here is Protestantism and republicanism. Those are the two horns on which this country was established. It has two horns, and the beast came up out of the earth. Notice we read earlier that the four beasts came out of the sea. Lots of people. This beast came out of the earth because at the time it was a sparsely populated area, particularly at this area of the world. There were perhaps no more than about 3 million people in America at that time. So let's see, because what we're watching, we're trying to understand the outcome. Because we only recently had an election. And every 4 years, we go through this process to find a leader that will take care of this blessed nation. And make no bones about it, it is a blessed nation in terms of the resources and the people, that the gifted people that he has allowed to come to this great nation. And so the word says, "And he," that's the earth beast, "exercised all the powers of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed." That's troubling. That is troubling. It says this beast that came out of the earth came out of its infancy, and it was so innocent, it was like a lamb, almost docile. Lambs don't hurt. You never hear on the news that a lamb has ever gored anyone to death. But it says, as the times unfold, in the last days, the nowadays, this original lamb will start to speak like a dragon. Now, as you well know, a country speaks to its people by way of its policies, whether it's through immigration, whether it's taxes, whether it is to do with food items, how it treats the poor, and so on and so forth, but how it treats its people. It speaks to them by way of its policies. And we read in Proverbs that when the righteous are in power, the people rejoice. But when the wicked are in rule, the people mourn. So all you have to do is to look around and listen to the noise of people's voices. What are they saying? Are they rejoicing or are they mourning at this particular time? And then the word says, if they are mourning, then the wicked are in rule. If you go to the shop, you can understand why people are up in arms about the prices of things, house prices, insurances, And all these things, the people are mourning, and the word says, when they do that, wickedness is taking place in the land. And so we continue to look at this fourth beast. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire came down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceive them that dwell on the earth. Again, that's not a commendation. This beast is deceptive. That's what the word here wants you to know. And this beast performs all kinds of miracles, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image of the beast, which had the wound by the sword, and live. And he had power to give life unto the image and the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image, the beast, should be killed. So the end time doesn't look very pretty. If this passage is depicting the earth beast that helped the woman that fled from Europe to the America, it doesn't look very good. So this earth beast, the word wants you to know that, and he caused it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And no man may buy or sell, save he had that mark, and the name of the beast, and the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 606 and 666. So that's the fourth beast that troubled Daniel, even as it troubles us, as people struggle to comprehend who it is talking about. And obviously, speculation is rife because it doesn't name specifically a country like in times past it says Media Persia or Greece or Babylon. It just gives you pointers that you have to search the word and bring them together to get a correct understanding. And so we don't want to ascribe or arrogate something to someone that it doesn't belong. And so we are careful to ensure that we are tracing the steps given to us by the Ruach, because we know where the church fled from, and we know where the church came to, and who helped the church. Thereafter, there was indeed a revival here in America. We know that. And so let's go back to the book of Daniel chapter 7, as we started out. So if we were to say that the first beast there is Britain and America came out of Britain, being the eagle, and Daniel says, I also saw a second beast. And what did he say about the second beast? He says, a bear. A bear. And as I indicated earlier, scholars and theologians will tell you, well, that's Media Persia. They will tell you that. because they align this, they link this back to Daniel chapter 2. But if you go to Daniel chapter 8, well, let's go there. Daniel chapter 8, because it tells you how Media Persia is depicted. It says, the ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. So we know Media Persia is a ram, not a bear. It's not a bear. But we do know that Russia is depicted as a bear. We know that. And he sees a leopard. And of course, again, the same group of people, same teachers, same pastors, same elders. They tell you this is Greece. But we know that, again, chapter 8 tells us that Greece is the egoat. That's Alexander the Great. So, but we do know that Germany, particularly by way of the tanks, the Leopard tanks, the battle tanks, it has that emblem. And so we're just giving you another perspective to this rather than the traditional perspective that everybody runs with. We see that. It's a different perspective. And so this fourth beast, the subject of our exercise, it is so powerful, Daniel wants you to know, that in the end time, it is going to expand its territories. Power. And so, if that's the case, it wouldn't surprise us greatly of the talks now to engraft into America countries and other states. It shouldn't. It is expanding its territories. That's what it's doing. And so when you hear such talk, we're going to make such and such nation great again, we can frame it with the scriptures. Even as Nebuchadnezzar, you remember him in chapter 4 of Daniel in verse 30. Well, let's read it. Let's not just talk, but read it. The word says, the king spake. This is after Daniel had warned him that you be coming too high and mighty. Be careful. Well, let's read from verse 27, because this is an ancient king in Babylon. What we're dealing now with is Mr. Babylon. So if we know what happened in ancient Babylon, this is what is going to happen in Mr. Babylon. Why? Because prophecy is a cycle. Verse 27, wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. If it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility, show mercy to the poor. That's what he's saying. Show them some respect. Stretch your hand out, because all I see is you have a clenched fist, Nebuchadnezzar. What I hear now, we're going to send them home. We are going to transport them, mass deportation. Is that what you intend to do, Nebuchadnezzar? The warning here from Daniel is show mercy to the poor. Verse 28, all this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar, And at the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. Remember, it's 12 months since Daniel spoke to him and warned him, show mercy to the poor. And perhaps in our context, that could mean the students. Show mercy to them. But the word says, verse 30, the king spake. He ignored everything that Daniel said. The king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? What is he saying? He's saying, this is the Babylon that I made great. That's Nebuchadnezzar. Well, let's read verse 31. While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O king, Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. You were warned to be merciful to the poor. You had been given great riches, but you ignored all that and even the counsel that Daniel gave to you, and now listen to you. You have made Babylon great, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beast of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomever he will. In other words, the king was told, you're going to be a vegetarian for 7 years. You're going to be eating grass in the wilderness for 7 years because you have boasted too much. Your kingdom is going to be taken from you for 7 years. I want you to understand that it's Nebuchadnezzar who's writing his biography here. It's giving you his experience. Jotted down by Daniel. That's what he's saying. And so he spent 7 years in the wilderness. And then Yah restored him to his kingdom. Now, if we ought to take this pattern and say this is a pattern of where spiritual Babylon is going, then the end time is not going to be a pretty place to live. A lot of deceptions, a lot of lies, a lot of people wanting to be great rather than humbling themselves. And even worse, there are not sufficient Daniel to counsel the people. So in our study tonight, I just want to close on this because in verse 25, Daniel said, they would think to change laws and time. They would think to change laws and time. And as you well know that during the time that Yeshua was on earth, the Julian calendar was in use. And it was perhaps one of the most inaccurate of all calendars, and they sought to correct it. And so today we have the Gregorian calendar. So Julius Caesar, as you know, was the creator of this, but it was a most inaccurate calendar. And they changed it. We understand that Pope Gregory the 13th led out in this charge to change the Gregorian calendar. And this happened in October 1582. And it happened that it was on a Friday, which was supposed to be the 5th. So you would come to Thursday the 4th, and tomorrow being the 5th, being Thursday, but they shifted for 10 days, and you move from the 4th to the 15th. That's when the calendar was changed. So even though we move from the 4th to the 15th, the day, the actual day did not change. And the point I want to emphasize, this same calendar that was in existence when Yeshua was in Jerusalem is the same calendar we have today. It hasn't changed. So when somebody says, I don't know when the Sabbath is, it is the same Sabbath today as it was when Yeshua was on earth. It hasn't changed. Even though they changed the calendar, the days did not change. The days of the week did not change. When they changed from the 4th Thursday to the 15th Friday, the numbers changed, but the day did not change. It was still Friday. And so we just want to make that point that they will think to change laws and time. Of course, people are now saying that the first day of the week is the Sabbath, and others are saying we don't keep the feast days. And Yeshua gave us the feast days so he can teach us the mechanics of how he's going to appear. And particularly when Paul spoke in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3, he said, don't worry, because the coming of Yeshua will not occur until the man of sin reveal himself, the man who opposes all things and show himself to be a God on earth. And so we understand what is coming. We just got to keep our eyes, because the deception is going to be coming both from politics and religion. That's where it's coming from. And therefore, we got to learn to understand the word of Yah and read it and stay in under his wings and let him carry us under his eagle's wing, even as he carried the children of Israel from Egypt to the promised land. Let this be our contemplation this evening and even beyond, so that we may not allow ourselves to be driven away from the truth. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.